This presentation is part one of the Levy County Virtual Flood Map Open House. I'm your host, Brad Heilwagen with Wood Technical Consulting Solutions in Nashville, Tennessee and Newberry, Florida. Along with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Suwannee River Water Management District, and our business partners North Florida Professional Services in Lake City, Florida, I welcome you to this presentation. The purpose for this presentation is that Suwannee River Water Management District, in partnership with FEMA, is revising a portion of the regulatory flood maps for Levy County. This presentation is to help the community understand the scope of the map revision, where to see the new maps, how to determine your flood zone, what's required in your new flood zone, how to appeal or comment the new maps, and how to sign up for a one-on-one consultation with a staff member from Suwannee River Water Management District. The next section of this presentation will go through the scope of the map revision. What you're seeing in front of you is a map of the entirety of Levy County. You can see that Levy County is touched by 4 watersheds as defined by the United States Geological Survey. This project focused on the Waukesasa watershed. As defined by FEMA, the flood insurance rate map for Levy County covers the entire county. That said, the flood insurance rate map for Levy County is broken up into panels of varying scales depending on the level of detail required for that panel. Not all panels in Levy County were revised as a part of this project. On your screen now, you'll see the entire paneling scheme for Levy County with those panels that were revised as a part of this project highlighted in red. It may be difficult to see, so I'll zoom in so you can see the individual panels that were revised as a part of this project. The purpose of the flood maps is to help FEMA and local floodplain administrators identify, assess, and reduce flood risk. As part of their overall flood risk mapping, assessment, and planning initiative, also called Risk Map, FEMA routinely revisits areas on a watershed-by-watershed basis to help improve the accuracy of the maps and increase the percentage of each county with new, validated, or updated engineering. The FEMA flood mapping process requires many phases with intermediate checks and steps in between. The project for the Waukesasa watershed in Levy County began with a discovery meeting in September 2014 and has continued on since that day to the preliminary firm release on March 27, 2020. We are currently transitioning from preliminary firm release to the due process phase. The technical focus of this project was on updating the modeling and mapping on the Waukesasa River, as well as adding base flood elevations. In addition, base flood elevations on Bronson North and South Ditch were improved based on modeling that was performed by Jones Edmonds under contract with Southwest Florida Water Management District. Now we'll go through where the community leaders and citizens can see the preliminary maps. There are 2 locations where the new maps can be viewed digitally and 3 locations where paper maps can be viewed. Citizens can go to the Suwannee River Water Management District website at http://mysuwanneeriver.com to view the maps. When you bring up the home page, click the flood mapping icon in the middle. This will take you to the FEMA floodplain mapping information page. From there, click on either of the links for the SRWMD flood report. To skip the district's website altogether and go directly to the SRWMD flood report, users can type http://www.srwmdfloodreport.com into your browser. The flood report website is an interactive mapping website where users can view the effective special flood hazard areas, the preliminary special flood hazard areas, and layers that show the changes between them. Users can also toggle on and off base mapping information such as county boundaries, parcels, and river marks. Users can zoom into their parcel of interest and toggle on and off the effective and preliminary data. Users can also toggle on and off the changes since last firm layer. The changes since last firm layer compares the preliminary mapping to the effective mapping, showing areas of special flood hazard area increase in red and special flood hazard area decrease in green. Users can also click on parcels for more information about that particular parcel and generate a flood report that shows the preliminary mapping, the effective mapping, or some combination of both, as well as other flood information such as the current base flood elevation. Another location to view the preliminary maps is at FEMA's Preliminary Map Viewer, which is part of FEMA's Map Service Center. Website users have a 3-step process to get the maps that they want to see. The first step is to click on drop-down menu number 1 and select the state of Florida. After selecting the state of Florida, users can click on drop-down menu number 2 and select Levy County. After selecting Levy County, users click on button number 3 to get a list of preliminary map products available on this website. Users of this website will want to download the index first to determine which panel you need. You can download the index in PDF form and zoom into your location, finding the number of the firm panel that you need to download. Once you know that number, you can go back to the preliminary map viewer and download that particular firm panel to view your area of interest. There are also 3 locations within Levy County where citizens can view printed copies of the maps. If you live in Bronson, your maps can be viewed at the Bronson Town Hall at 650 Oak Street in Bronson. If you live in Otter Creek, your maps can be viewed at the Otter Creek Town Hall at 555 Southwest 2nd Avenue in Otter Creek. If you live outside of those 2 communities but within Levy County, your maps can be viewed at the Levy County Building Department at 622 East Hathaway Avenue in Bronson. Now we'll go through how to look at the new maps, how to determine your zone, and what will be required of you in your new zone. The first step when looking at any flood map is to determine your flood risk. Nearly everyone is at risk of flooding, and all locations on the flood insurance rate map are in some sort of flood risk zone. Areas shaded in blue or red and blue hatched are called high-risk flood zones. Those are Zone A, Zone V, Zone AE, AO, AH, VE, and AR, as well as the regulatory floodway. These zones are also called the Special Flood Hazard Area, or SFHA. Areas of moderate risk are shaded in orange or gray and represent the 0.2% annual chance flood hazard area, or areas of 1% annual chance with average depths less than 1 foot. Areas of low flood risk are either not shaded at all or shaded in a light yellow, representing Zone D or Zone X. The National Flood Insurance Program mandates that federally regulated lenders making new loans or modifying existing loans secured by a building in the special flood hazard area must require the borrower to purchase flood insurance for the term of the loan. That means that if you're buying a home in a high-risk flood zone or refinancing your existing home in the high-risk flood zone, they will require you to purchase flood insurance for the term of the loan. When comparing the effective flood maps and the new preliminary maps, it is important to note your risk change scenario. If your area of interest is changing from a low or moderate risk flood zone to a high risk flood zone, flood insurance is going to be mandatory. It will be federally required for most mortgage holders. Insurance costs may rise to reflect the true risk of flooding. If you are in a high risk zone to begin with, and the base flood elevation has increased, that base flood elevation increase may result in higher premiums. That said, if you currently have a flood insurance plan, grandfathering can offer savings. The National Flood Insurance Program grandfathering rules allow policyholders who have built in compliance with the flood map in effect at the time of construction to keep the earlier base flood elevation to calculate their insurance rate. If you find yourself changing from a high-risk flood zone to a low or moderate risk flood zone, it is important to note that flood insurance is optional but recommended by FEMA. The flood risk has only been reduced, not removed. Flood insurance can still be obtained and at lower rates. It's worth noting that about 25% of all flood insurance claims in the United States come from moderate to low risk areas. If your flood zone is changing to a low risk flood zone, an existing flood insurance policy can easily be converted to a lower cost preferred risk policy if the flood risk is reduced and the building qualifies. You should note though that lenders always have the option to require flood insurance in low flood risk areas. Now we'll go through how community leaders or citizens can go about submitting an appeal or a comment on the preliminary maps. As I noted on the timeline before, we are transitioning from the preliminary firm release phase of the project to the due process phase. This due process phase includes a 90-day public appeal and comment period. Pursuant to FEMA requirements, all communities involved in this revision will have a 90-day appeal period for all changes to the special flood hazard areas. A notice of these changes will be published in the Federal Register and then published in local newspapers. We anticipate the 90-day appeal period to begin sometime in the month of November 2020. The appeal and comment period notification will be published in the Levy County Journal. The community may submit an appeal if they believe that the new or revised base flood elevations are scientifically or technically incorrect. Base flood elevations are considered scientifically incorrect if the methodology used and the assumptions made in the determination of the base flood elevations is inappropriate or incorrect. Base flood elevations are considered technically incorrect if the methodology was not applied correctly or is based on insufficient or poor quality data. The new base flood elevations are also technically incorrect if the methodology did not account for the effects of physical changes that have occurred in the floodplain. All communities involved in this revision will also have a comment period. Comments are different from appeals in that they do not involve base flood elevations. They include potential corrections needed for channel names and locations, road names and locations, or even corporate limit changes, such as community boundaries. All appeals and comments must be directed to the local floodplain administrator, who will compile them and submit them to Leroy Marshall at Suwannee River Water Management District. Community leaders and citizens should note that we will not move forward with this process until your appeals and comments are resolved. Part 2 of this open house process involves a one-on-one consultation with Suwannee River Water Management District. If you would like to proceed to Part 2 of this open house, you can call or email Leroy Marshall at Suwannee River Water Management District directly at 386-647-3124 or lrm@srwmd.org.